Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Jackie Fish and welcome back to another Divide Et Impera online battle. This battle was sent in to me from the guys who played in the Colosseum tournament that has been raging on. We have since covered the tournament finals, so if you guys want to go check that out, make sure you do so. I'll leave a link down below in the description if you guys want to check out the final after this match. But I believe this match was from the quarterfinals. It is between the Dacians and the Saki. So we got basically two kind of very northern tribes going to war against one another. One being very nomadic, one being kind of much more barbarian slash tribal. However, the great thing is about the Dacian army is it does have access to a few of the nomadic units, obviously being up there, around the Danube, so that they're basically right next to them on the campaign map. So it's going to make for a very interesting battle, and we've already casted a battle or two from the Saki, and I think they are definitely one of the stronger factions in the tournament. They have some crazy ass cavalry along with a very, very solid core. However, I think if people prep to destroy them, they definitely can do that. I feel like the Saki definitely are not as versatile as a few of the other factions, and that might be their undoing in this match. So the Saki are bringing very much a normal army that they brought in our last match. We saw obviously a core of heavy, super heavy cataphracts. They've got a very large contingent of lighter skirmish cavalry on their left flank, and then their center is going to basically consist of a lot of Armenian hoplites and very, very strong units that can basically just hold the center whilst the cavalry wins on the flanks, and their missile core just fires in on the enemy, and really just basically this army is all about disruption, causing the enemy to try and box up, and then when they do so, their kind of core of hoplites move in, and then the archers just have a field day shooting everything. Going up against him, we do have the Dacians from KWZ. He's gone for a very kind of different army comp, I think, than a lot of people have brought against the Saki, and this might be the army comp you need to bring to take down an army like this, a very skirmisher-heavy nomadic force, which can be super scary. He's gone for a lot of these lighter infantry, which can basically just kind of keep up with his own cavalry and also spread out. Obviously, the lighter infantry has much larger numbers. The kind of less quality but more numerous units have 225 of them, whereas the elites have, I think, 150. So he's gone for a lot of these lighter infantry, just basically screen out his front line, and if any missile engagements do occur or any cavalry engagements occur, he can quickly move this cavalry and the infantry into supporting the fights. He also has brought a bunch of skirmish cavalry himself. He's got these bow cavalry, which are basically lighter variants of what the Saki have. So again, it's not going to be like better than what they have, but it's still going to be a nice way to deal with them, as bow cavalry is going to be very, very useful indeed. He does also have some decent spearmen in his front line as well. He does have some more of the elite heavy phalanxes back here, so a few more units to basically hold the hoplites if they do get involved. And then he's also just got a bunch of sword infantry, again pretty, I think, cheap sword infantry. We take a look at them right now. Yeah, you can see these guys have 150 in them, so not exactly the best, but they are still chosen Falksmen. So I think he's got about 4 of these guys of quality, and the rest is just much lighter spears, which, you know, add numbers, and the cavalry can really spread out. And again, a lot of these missile horses, which I think is going to be very useful. If he can kind of play the Saki at their own game, that's going to be pretty good, and obviously harass the enemy. However, the battle is about to kick off, and we will get this one started. So we're going to kick this battle off with the Saki moving in with some of their missile cavalry. Obviously, all this light shot cavalry is going to be getting hammered by all the bows, and yeah, unfortunately, these spearmen are in a real tricky situation. However, we do have the Dacians firing back with their own horse archers, so, you know, you have to fight fire with fire at the end of the day. And I do like this kind of, these spearmen screening this formation, because, again, that is definitely the way to try and take out a faction like this. Is to try and pin it down, disrupt it, split it in half. You know, the horse archers are really strong in numbers, but when they do start to lose men and they do start to lose numbers, that's when it becomes really hard. However, the Saki player is doing a great job right now at harassing the enemy, already taking down a ton of these spearmen. And again, you know, it might not seem like a lot, but, you know, this is a cheap unit of light spears, but every single one you take down is still going to help you out in the battle, and these archers are currently doing a very decent job. I'm surprised we're not seeing any actual archers themselves being brought into this army. You know, slingers or anything along them lines. I'm not sure if Dacia gets access to slingers, but again, once again, no one's rating missiles, and I think missiles would be really useful in a situation like this, because if you just have a bunch of slingers, you outrange the enemy horse archers, and you can just hammer away at them. But for that, you know, instead people have just gone for more of the horse archers of their own, which is not a bad idea, and I really like this move as well. So as you can see, the Dacian player has done a really good job here. He's basically spread out his formation to reduce the room that this kind of that the Saki player does have, right? Because there's no room here whatsoever. There's like a tiny gap here and a tiny gap here. This then means that the cavalry can't get around besides you, and they can't get around in your backs whatsoever. So that means you can quite quickly pin that down. And I really like the way that the players have come in here. And again, they've been able to catch a handful of these cavalry who are just a little bit slower. Actually, no, I say that back. The Dacian cavalry is much slower than these Saki raiders. But they've still managed to get caught, which is pretty impressive. And again, every horse you take down is going to be very useful. You know, even though you are taking casualties along here, as more of the archer fire does come in and really start to rack up, you can see a trail of bodies around here. But again, they're going to be able to get the hell out of there and only take minimal casualties. But not bad for the Dacians. They haven't really traded much in this engagement so far. And the use of the light spears has been very, very useful indeed. I mean, again, look at that. Look how many casualties being racked up. Like, these light spears are taking all the punishment, but you'd much rather these light spears take the punishment than anything else, as more and more of the cavalry does come over. And again, obviously, you know, with these light spears here, it's pretty difficult to really do anything. Are they going to go in for a charge here? No, almost. I thought they might have gone in for a charge there. Because even still, the Dacians are very much outmatched by all this skirmisher cavalry. And once more, these spearmen are just kind of trying to push the enemy back, just trying to keep them, you know, on the back foot. And just removing the space that they have to play, because again, these spearmen are pushing up and they're reducing. You know, there's like no space over on this right hand side. There's no way for this cavalry to get around and into the back. And whilst that's happening, the main Dacian corps is pushing up, because if you can engage this, like, this is not that strong. There's a lot of archers here. There's a lot of, you know, cavalry set up on the left-hand side. But for the most part, you can quite easily surround this formation. And I really like the way that the Dacian player is approaching this. He's basically just acting as like a Venus flytrap. You know, he's pushing up his flank, drawing the enemy in slowly, as this left flank just kind of slowly crushes around here, and eventually there'll be no room for this cavalry to then maneuver around whatsoever, because as you can see, all the cavalry is now being drawn into this flank, but it's just getting pushed up more and more. And because the Saki center is so slow, it's hard for them to go ahead and reinforce this. It's hard for them to retaliate to this, and that's one of the problems with hoplites in these open battles. It's quite hard for them to maneuver around. And you know, again, the slow kind of envelopment is occurring. But the Saki do have their elite cataphracts on the move, and these guys are also extremely scary, because one charge from this will rip through pretty much any cavalry in the game. So you want to be super careful with committing to this. And obviously the hoplites are moving in as well, and these are going to be a very, very scary unit, because it's, you know, there's not really a single Dacian unit that can break these guys down. Even the elite Falksmen are going to severely struggle to kill these guys from the front. Obviously, if they get around the flanks, it's a different story, but they shouldn't really be able to do that. And one of the units I love for the Saki as well is definitely going to be their archer spears. These guys are super deceptive, because whenever you're microing from up here, you don't see that they have their javelins as a weapon, so which is super deadly. Because if you end up charging them with cavalry, you get a rude awakening very quickly, because they can fend off cavalry very well as they're equipped with that spear. And it does seem like we do have a cataphract charge moving out right now, looking to close the distance and basically just rip through these swordsmen. A really good idea, actually. However, it really depends on if they can get out on match. They are going to be taking some javelin fire, which is obviously not great. That's going to be disrupting the charge. But the cavalry charge comes in, and that is deadly. As you can see, a unit of swords just does not stand a chance against these guys as they come flying in and do a serious amount of damage. But as you can see, a big thrust in there from these cataphracts as they pull out of here as quickly as possible. I wouldn't be surprised as well. I think it would have been a good idea to start bringing all this cavalry over immediately and just punish this cavalry. However, the amount of javelin fire these cataphracts have taken have severely wounded one of the units. There was a big focus fire here, trying to take down as many of these cataphracts as they could. Obviously, they must have taken all of this javelin fire, and that's taken down a very expensive unit with more units moving in. And again, a lot of these light spears are just taking all the missile fire. So right now, really nice play, and there's no real way for them to get onto this cavalry back here. And again, there's just a slow advance of light infantry that doesn't really matter, pushing further and further forward, which is able to get in. And wow, if they break a unit of cataphracts, this is really, really bad. If they can take them down just with, again, the consistent missile fire. It's 3 units of horses, a bunch of javelins, and that's the way to do it right now. And now they can actually start to be a bit more aggressive, I think, on this left-hand side. And yeah, just the ability to use all these spears as effectively as they can is great. And there's no real way for the Saki to fully, like, commit to doing this. You can see there is a large push here with a lot of missile fire. And are they just going to go in? Oh my god, they might just be going in. I think they shouldn't be doing this. They're just throwing in all their units, all their infantry in. I think they had all the time in the world to keep on backing up, honestly, and continuing to use these horse archers just to keep on firing. I do not think that this is particularly the play right now. They definitely can also. I would also be shifting this formation over, but I definitely don't think they needed to commit the cavalry into the spears, because the spears are going to win eventually, and all these other cavalry can keep on going in. I think they could have kept on just harassing them, because eventually these spears are going to get more and more depleted. Like, eventually the archer fire is going to take them down, and this is actually pretty good right now, playing into the hands. Like, obviously you don't want to just kind of engage into the enemy force, because you're going to inevitably get enveloped, but again, you've got to play to your strengths, and I think the strengths was all these raiders just constantly shooting and making gaps in the spears, because again, eventually they're going to run out of these Dacian Hastati, and eventually they're not going to be able to cover all these spaces, which is going to give you opportunities for your cavalry to move in. Like right now, a lot of these swords are taking an absolute pounding. I mean, look at this unit of Dacian foot nobles, down to 99 men. This one down to 146. Like, these units are not going to survive for much longer. I really do think as well that we need some more of these hoplites being sent over, and now they are going to go and reinforce the right flank. And I guess that wasn't the worst charge in the world, because again, they didn't really lose too many horses, but just I don't think necessarily something they need to do. Like, this is what they can just do, and this is the power of Vasaki. They can just keep on backing up and just keep on harassing these Hastati and just bring them down. And eventually, when this unit isn't here, look at all the gaps it then frees up. Like, when there's so much space that they can use to then pressure and use their cavalry. This left flank is pretty screwed, though, I'm not gonna lie. Like, if I saw this pounding down my left flank, I don't know exactly what I would do. I guess your only real play at this point is just to completely turn your formation, but again, you are playing a heavy hoplite wall, and that's kind of hard to do. Yeah, I guess that is really your only play, is to turn that formation, leave like 2 hoplites out here, and just push your cavalry forward. And yeah, really nice play here by the Dacians, coming in and just, yeah, causing a lot of issues. Obviously not engaging these hoplites, and that's one of the great things about going up against a full hoplite army, is that, you know, what are these hoplites going to do? They're going to come forward at you? I mean, it's almost impossible to do that, because if they move forward, you just move back. Like, you know, like they can't really engage you. You kind of need other factors to force the enemy to engage your front line, and for the Saki player, that is his cavalry, right? And his cavalry are working. Like, this missile fire is doing serious damage, and they need to be like hammer and anviling in here, like just kind of taken out, because a lot of these spearmen on this right flank are very low on morale. And they've taken casualties, and a couple cavalry charges I think would do it. However, I think the micro is starting to get to the Zaki player, and he is kind of struggling. There's some more cataphracts coming in, and this is just not going to be nice whatsoever. This light infantry is going to get absolutely washed away. Look at that, straight through the unit. Oh my god, I don't even want to see the casualties. Yeah, that was brutal. That was so many kills. But you pin down the cavalry, which is, I guess, a good thing, as long as you can seek the advantage. And there's a lot of archers right here as well, just firing away, doing a great job. I think at this point, though, you have to break your formation. And not only do you have to break your formation as Vasaki, I think you want to do it, because then that allows so much room for your cavalry. Like, just split these guys in half, send half that way, maybe not even half that way, and just reform. Like, this condensed center is going to lose in the battle. I can already see it, because there's just so many units here not doing anything. And yeah, you don't want to break up your hoplite wall, but at this point, it's not doing anything, and the enemy are just enveloping you. You know, if you had a couple hoplites stuck into these fights, it's not the end of the world, but at least they're stuck in doing something right now. Protecting your archers and scaring off enemy cavalry, because yeah, there's a lot of light spears over here, but if you have hoplites going into this cavalry as well, that's going to be pretty deadly also. And right now, there's just so many units moving in right now, and we need the cavalry. Vasaki need to get their cavalry just in the back of these fights. They need to engage with one horse and charge with another. They have to use their cavalry as infantry, and that's exactly what these Indo-Hellenic heavy cavalry are for. They're for engaging the enemy on the front lines and then using a cavalry unit to smash in, or on the flanks, I should say. You know, that's what they need to be doing, because the units themselves are pretty broken up. And I'm very surprised we're not seeing this cavalry line completely split up. You can see the Saki cataphracts are starting to break with the amount of missile fire coming in as well, which is really bad. And again, I think these missiles at this point need to be turned over and started to shoot in onto the horses themselves. That needs to be going in immediately, because as you can see, as the cavalry does come in, as more reinforcements come in, the Dacians are going to be struggling. They already entered this fight with not many men, but again, you know, there's just so many infantry coming around right now, and these hoplites are just way too stagnant. way too stagnant whatsoever. Obviously, you know, the Dacian players done a great job of just completely ignoring them. But the Saki player just hasn't reacted, unfortunately. I guess he's too busy microing elsewhere, trying to keep this line going in. And again, another cavalry charge here is great. He needs to free up this center as quickly as possible. But more and more of the Dacian swordsmen are flying around that flank. And finally, we're starting to see some of the hoplites moving, but it's just far too late. They need to be getting involved in here a long time ago. And the archers need to also be falling back and rotating, trying to draw the enemy cavalry in, because, you know, at this point, the Saki still have plenty of cavalrymen to force the enemy to be very cautious, and their cavalry is obviously way better as well. The Dacians on this left flank are just pushing in more and more pressure as the cavalry has to commit in here. However, that's 2 more fresh units of their melee cavalry able to then now move out of here, and they're doing a good job with surrounding these units. They just need to commit more and more to it. However, you know, again, the infantry are just coming around. The Dacian player is refusing to commit to this fight, which is exactly what he should be doing. He doesn't want to waste his cavalry, and if the enemy want to chase him, then that's fine with him. I have no idea what these hoplites are doing right now. I guess that was a massive miss micro, and again, yeah, more and more of the hoplites are moving in, but is kind of struggling. But look how deadly these archers are, though. This is exactly what needed to be happening. They needed just to fall back on these flanks and just focus down, you know, all of these units. Because again, both players have 40 units. If they just continue just to harass the enemy with these archers and split them up, you know, just move archers, like, see that the Dacian player wasn't bringing anything into the center, and then just bring all your archers to the flanks. You can scare off the cavalry, you can scare off the infantry. You know, you can definitely do some serious damage right there. Even just giving gaps, like even just playing the battle, like, you know, having, can't really see it there, but basically just having like a unit of hoplites there, space, hoplite, space, hoplite, space, hoplite. Like, that's a much better way. Yes, you leave gaps, but it's not anywhere near as bad as what's happened. And I mean, bounce power is still extremely even though. So I have been giving the Saki player a little bit of crap here and there, or just praising the Dacian player more so than anything. And that's mainly because I just think the Saki army is so strong and is very hard to beat. It really is very hard to beat. But I think the Dacian player is obviously watched a replay or two, knows how he's going to play, and has crafted a very good strategy to defeat him, which is exactly how you should. You know, Hannibal wasn't defeated blindly, that is for sure. Yeah, you can just see the strength of these archers, just really focusing, firing down, and yeah, taking the enemy down. But look at this, there's a complete envelopment right now. Even though the Saki have managed to take down a few bits of territory here and there, the Dacian cavalry is now all the way in the rear, just firing in their shots. And again, I love the way that this Dacian cavalry has been played. It's very harassment focused, not overcommitting it. Like, I would have got tired and just thrown in my cavalry a long time ago, charging it in. This cavalry is being played to perfection right now, just firing in and yeah, just trying to really harass the enemy. And the hoplites are being committed way too early. And look at all these archers are completely undefended. But as I say that, you know, again, remember what I said. Like, these archers still have a very strong ability to fend off horsemen. You know, they look very scary, but all of a sudden they're no longer a light archer unit. They're all of a sudden a spear and shield unit. So they actually have a great job at defending off this cavalry, and they're doing a great job of it right now. Obviously, if they get enveloped, that's going to struggle, but still pretty good nonetheless. And there's just hammer and anvils going into the back of these hoplites. Obviously caught completely out of position. There's not really much cavalry left for the Saki to help out whatsoever. As again, more and more of infantry do just circle in. And again, you can just see that the sheer mass of this battle. And you always know it's a good battle when the battle is just this messy right now. There's units everywhere. Cavalry charging in. We've got the nomadic general charging in there. But you guys can see what I'm saying. Like, these spears, if they weren't getting rear charged, or this cavalry or these archers weren't getting rear charged, you can see how well they're actually able to fend off a lot of these horses. They're winning in a few of these engagements when they're not being broken through morale. Like, if you just get one unit of cavalry charging these light archers, they do a really good job. I think they're a super strong unit. I think the Saki are just a very strong faction to deal with in the open field, much like they should be, obviously. Nomadic power after all. Oh, that guy getting absolutely smashed off. But again, their center really struggling. And I wonder as well if the Saki player did, you know, you can see balance power starting to shift in favor of Dacia now. Just, you know, having the cavalry dominance now is really turning the tide. The hoplites just are not able to do what they can do. Yeah, the Dacians are going to be wrapping up this battle for sure. And I really wonder if the Saki player did choose to move his hoplite wall earlier, if that would have been different. You know, if he would have, for example, as the enemy wrapped around here, if he just brought his line back and just kind of really just faced the enemy, I think he would have been in a much better situation, because all of a sudden, like, the problem was in this battle was that the Dacians were covering from red line to red line, forcing the enemy to have no room for their cavalry to maneuver. However, I think if they maybe would have, as the enemy started pushing up on this right flank, if they would have just rotated that phalanx line to like this, then all of a sudden, look at that, you've got all these other rooms for the flanks to move in. And the enemy can't then outflank you, or at least it's much harder because they have to keep on coming around. I think it would have been a very, very good idea for the Saki player to do that. But yeah, definitely his hoplites moved far too slowly. Or he maneuvered them way too slowly. Obviously, the hoplites are very slow, and you obviously, you know, struggle with your counter charge and stuff like that. But yeah, they needed to move, and I think that could have maybe upturned the tide in this battle. However, clearly the Dacian army was tailored towards fighting this exact force, so, you know, he knew what he was going up against. He had a very good game plan, and that's obviously paid off for him. You know, creating that pre-game strategy is obviously very important indeed. And if you don't know, actually I won't spoil it. I won't spoil who won the tournament, even though it's pretty obvious by me saying that. But yeah, the Dacian player ends up winning the tournament. Sorry, I mean, it's pretty obvious now that I say that. But yeah, the Dacian player does end up winning the tournament. KWC ends up taking it. So you can see, obviously, he ended up winning, becoming the best of the best. But yeah, still a very, very strong matchup. And this was an exciting match. I was really curious about how KWZ did take down the Sake nomadic tribe player. And yeah, I mean, it was still a very close battle as well. Only 1,000 kills in it. But yeah, it's just them hoplites were... and you can see they actually got some decent kills as well. But yeah, they were just far too immovable in that central, and they were just moved too slowly, which allowed the mobility of these light spears. Because again, you know, KWZ brought a lot of lighter infantry to this fight to try and outmaneuver the Saki player, and because he just stuck too long in that center, yeah, it came to bite him. But again, you know, in the heat of battle, it's hard to kind of make the right decision sometimes, and you look back on it, and obviously when I cast these battles, I'm like, oh yeah, I would have obviously have done that. But when you're in the heat of battle, it's very hard to you know, to make them split decisions, because it could cost you going into the next round. And yeah, sometimes you just want to be like, oh, I'm just going to stay here and we'll see what happens. Maybe I don't feel as pressured as maybe I am, and stuff like that. So if you guys enjoyed this, make sure you drop a like and a comment down below. Big shout out to both the players and everyone who played in the Colosseum tournament, and I'll see you guys in the next one.